Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new edition of Low Code Café, episode 35. Today, it's a very nice topic. What we will do, and probably you've seen this quite a bit with other product companies. This idea of a feedback forum where people submit ideas, the ideas get voted, and so on, and in the end they get converted into product items on the development roadmap. So that's what we are going to do today with our community forums that many of you already know. But I do see some new faces here in this webinar, so let me give you a brief introduction of what we are doing here. This is an event that we are doing every Wednesday at the same hour, and we get together our community and our team to discuss on the technical subjects related to the product. So this includes the product roadmap, updates, releases, and today we have good news, and I will let Reza to give it to you. But also we spend some time doing hands-on development. Like for example, last week we did a very interesting one, integrating Google spreadsheets, both ways with Plantanet, right? Like really cool topic. And then the thing is with all these webinars, we record them and publish them on our YouTube channel. So if you want to see, for example, this Google spreadsheet integration, it's easy to find it. Also, Dale takes a lot of time to put the right bookmarks so you can easily navigate because it's 1 hour of video, right? So very good content. So I invite you to find the channel, subscribe to it to stay up to date as well. Cool. So for today, as I was saying, first we'll have Reza give us an update regarding current releases and future releases. And then we'll have the same episode that we have nearly on every week, which is Dale giving us some examples, some stories that we collect on our support channel. And finally, today, the hands-on part, which is the feedback forum that I mentioned, will also be led by Reza, our head of product. So that's it, Reza, if you want to take over and give us the big news.
Thanks, Bogdan. Hey, everyone. Yeah, so today, we always kind of look at our roadmap and things that come in, and we'll take a glance there and tell you guys that release 112 is out in the wild. It's available to one-click update from within your applications, and we'll take a quick look and refresher of all the great stuff that made it into that release, tell you a little bit about what we're working on now, but then in the actual building part of the Low Code Cafe, want to take a look at something I'm working on, and we'll put it into place together. But we get a lot of requests and ideas, and they come in from a lot of different places. But I've noticed, especially on the community portal, there's a lot of feature requests and enhancements and things people are asking about. And so what I want to do is a little bit of surgery on the community portal, and we're going to modify it a little bit so that you have still your questions and the discussions you're having about how to do things and how stuff works. Is this an error? What am I doing wrong? But then also being able to request features and enhancements. You'll be able to vote on them, and then there's a concept in product management called product-led growth. And this is where you're taking feedback from your community, from the product itself, to help set what are you going to build next and when, if not next. And so we want to really open things up and get you all involved and your voice, and make transparent where a lot of these things are. Because sometimes I can imagine that it might feel like you've asked about something and, hey, we're working on it. That's something we want to do, but you don't really know when. So we're going to take a look at what we're thinking about, how to collect that input from you all, allow you all to have a voice in that and vote up these ideas. as well as then us being able to do some scoring to help prioritize. Because just having a great idea is not what it takes. And unfortunately, I'm drowning in great ideas right now. And so I want to look at some of the other measures and dimensions that go into this. And we'll go ahead and kind of set the stage for things, but we'll kind of put it into place here together and see how to implement like a scoring and prioritization model. This will ultimately connect up into our backlog, and the ideas that do get approved will be fed in automatically to the backlog. So kind of jumping in here, or is that me setting the stage? Is Dale doing his part next? Am I turning it over to Dale?
Oh yeah, let me jump in, and then I will flip it back to you here in just a minute. So yeah, I have a little bit of content that I'd like to share today. Let me get that going. So from the trenches, two things I wanted to hit on. One, we have had a ticket that had a question about validating CSV uploads for expected columns. And while it was put in as a request through our support center, actually quite a while ago, it really is something that the tools to do that are already built in within the product. It's not explicitly a feature, but it is built in within the product, the ability to do that. But since this is, I think, a relatively common problem for anybody who's doing CSV uploads, I built a solution that at least you can take a look at and say, oh yeah, there's a technique that I can use. We really, because the topic of validating whatever your users uploads is kind of a specific to your circumstance, the validation really falls to the developer to make sure that it's good content. So for example, a CSV file has to have the right column names, the field names, and if you want them to be in a particular order, that's something that we can check, and that's what we're going to deal with today. I'm going to talk about today. But there's other things like do the data in each row, validating the row data, what are the data types, what are the values, do they make sense for your circumstance, and do they link to the right records? There's a lot of validation that needs to happen that is kind of beyond the scope of what we can help you with, but we provide all the right tools. So let me just show quickly what I've built and where you can find this particular answer. So I have a very short CSV file that has field names across the top, 15 different field names, and then some values, some data values underneath. And so I want to validate that all 15 of these columns are present in the data before I accept it. Because the user, could upload the wrong file. I've got another file here that's only has 3 different things that gets uploaded. If the user connects the wrong file to the wrong place, then you've got errors to deal with. So we have this, and this is the expected column layout. I'm actually going to just put a wrong column header in just to demonstrate that, well, that the thing works. I'm going to take the chance that my development is in fact correct. So I'm going to choose that file, the account entries CSV file, and I have a test import button. And what I get out of it is a toast message that says the column structure is valid false. So it found that it didn't work correctly. And so when I flip back, I'm going to change my column structure here to what it's supposed to be and connect the file again and test import it, and now it says, the column structure valid is true. So the technique that's built in here is something that that you could implement as part of your testing to say, yeah, all the right columns are there, and they're at least connecting the right file. Here's this little 4-column one that I'll test, and again, it'll be false. It's not the thing that's being expected. So you can start your validation there and then expand it on to deal with the other things that were, like row data types and validate link records and whatever validation needs to happen. So the information for that was actually entered as a case, and it's this case here, and I've posted this on your on the chat already. So if you're interested in finding that solution, and I'll likely turn this into a low-code feature focus as well. But everything you need is right there on that case, and it's linked in on our chat window. So then the next thing that I wanted to mention is, and I'm really just helping Reza set the stage for what we're going to do with the community forum today. But this cycle of, we get ideas that come in from the community forum or from the support center, and it already finds its way in a manual way into our DevOps system when Reza approves that we're going to take on that solution to the idea. It finds its way into our development system and then is worked the way through. But I just wanted to illustrate some of a place where this has happened, is in the process of happening for us. So we have some open tickets here. One was in our community portal where somebody was asking about using the Shamsi, and I don't even know how to pronounce this calendar, but it's a very specific calendar that they wanted to use for the date picker. And so that was one thing having to do with date picker. We also had in our help center somebody asking about needing to be able to use a different locale in the date picker, which would give different information, set it up differently. And in the same way, somebody else asking about the date picker using different days and using a different language. And so being able to set up for a different locale and being able to display the date names in a different way, that was something that was asked about. So in dealing with all that, we actually, as we noticed, as each of these requests came in, we originally opened a ticket and with the development team, and then as we go on, we make a reference back to, okay, this community forum, this help center case, now we're starting to see that there's some interest and some energy around this topic. So it's not just one person, it's 3 people. There's probably more people that it would be convenient for. So then there's this decision made, yes, let's do that. And currently this particular feature is something that's scheduled for version 1.13, our next release. And so hopefully that if it's solvable and fits, it will be in our 1.13. But that's kind of this cycle that we're doing it in a very manual way. We're seeing it, we're assimilating these individual requests and finding its way into the product roadmap. I am going to then yield here. I'm going to stop sharing and let Reza take on from here. Reza, I know that was a little bit abrupt. I hope you're ready to jump in, but we're come back into the pool here.
Yes, sorry, Zoom hides from me.
I fight with the exact same thing. Thank you.
All right, so let me find the screen I want to share here. Sorry, it is not pulling up. 1 second. There we go. All right, first thing we'll do is, and Dale, let me know if my screen looks small.
Not sharing yet. I don't see it yet.
It says it's sharing.
There it is.
Is it there?
Yep, it's coming up now. Yep.
Okay, great. So yeah, release 112 officially, finally landed in your updates sections yesterday. like I mentioned prior week, was that there were over 70 features, enhancements, fixes, security updates, all kinds of goodies. The key highlights, we introduced a new low-code engineer role and have provided clarity around what these roles mean, breaking things out into developer roles, citizen developer, low-code engineer, admin being a true system administrator responsible for enabling, disabling features and settings, creating users on behalf of others within the system, and being able to see and do everything with the data of the application, but not a builder at all anymore, not going to develop anything. And then the kind of standard system user roles, like manager and user, and just manager being privileged, can see everything. User, you give the permissions on a case-by-case basis as you're building and creating, just like you would with any roles you create. There's a new page management section, giving you the ability to create pages that are not generated by the data model, by the entity builder, to restructure your pages, make them visible, not visible, change the roles and permissions on who can see them, who can edit them, this sort of thing. And that's inside of App Builder. A lot of work went into workflows, and that was a major focus area of the release. Saving and testing from within a workflow, importing and exporting workflows, default values, several things like that, as well as a very important security update to forms and listings, grids and forms. And so I highly encourage you all to consume and take this release. We are certified with it up to DNN 981. We have also in this release implemented the minimum version for DNN, and that's pretty much our stance now and going forward is DNN 932 and above. And so if you don't have that version of DNN, it will not let you, you might be able to upgrade into place, but you won't be able to set up any new instances against a version prior to that. What's keeping us up these days, keeping things going with workflows, introducing the concept of like a namespace or grouping so that you can kind of categorize these and keep them together better. Having the ability to save kind of pre-done test cases in the workflows. So a lot of times when you have a lot of workflows with many inputs and you want to test it out, you've got to fill that form out over and over. And so you're going to be able to say, hey, this is my test case for whatever, and you'll just pick it from a drop down and say, go run, and it'll populate everything for you. That sets the stage in a next release to be able to start saving these executions of these test cases and the outputs and results, and being able to help you triage, unit test, regression test, and just know, especially if you've got something that's very heavily dependent on workflows, and maybe you've changed something, you've upgraded, whatever, is my application still working? Also, there's a new SQL runner. It lets you run SQL queries out of App Builder. Maybe, you know, I'm still thinking on the name. It's pretty handy for reporting as well, because you can take the results of any query and export them to Excel, CSV, JSON, even XML. And so you can, you know, a lot of usage there, even if you're just wanting to get the data out and take a look at it or play with it in a spreadsheet or something, or you're needing it to populate or seed a different system. And there's several formats there that you can get that with. Also, and the last thing I'll touch on here before we jump in is that everything in this release 113 is being tested. If there's any issues, we'll resolve them, but we want to come out of this one certified for DNN 990, which is the latest one that just dropped maybe a week and a half ago. So we should be in place for that, and we're probably 3 to 4 weeks out from 113. Wanting to size this one a little bit smaller and kind of keep our commitment to having a monthly release cadence. 112 ran a little long. Things kind of came in, we had come back from holidays, and so wanting to tighten things up so we can always just kind of keep moving and dropping things and not letting too much build up. So with that said, let's jump into our focus today. And basically it is that we as I said, get a lot of requests and a lot of good ideas and features and things people want. And while they might be the greatest ideas, there's other factors that go in. And this is for anyone, not just us, right? To deciding, do I do a thing ever? Do I do it now? You know, when do I do it? How do I compare it? Because a lot of times also you can say, yes, I should do this and this and this and this. And then you look and say, there's no way I can do all this now. And so I've got a little scoring model I've developed, and it's maybe overkill for some of you, but if you find yourselves in a real business setting, these things really are not that overkill. And it's not just as simple as, I mean, it all does boil down to bang for the buck, right? How much value is this going to give me, and how much effort is it going to take? And there's a concept in Agile and in software development called weighted shortest job first, and it really translates to bang for the buck, right? And the thing is, if you've got something that's very valuable, but it's going to take a year to build, and you have something else it's valuable, it's definitely not as valuable as the thing that takes a year, but it's only going to take you a week. The idea is, when you come up with this score, it's going to surface these smaller things, these low-hanging fruit up, a lot of them up higher, right? Because you can unlock that value and recognize the value. Let's say it's going to make you, I'm just going to speak in terms of revenue, it's going to make you $10 a month. And the thing that you need to wait a year for is going to make you $100 a month. If you don't do any of the $10 a month things, it's going to be a year before you see any money coming in, right? But if you unlock these $10 things, that other thing's going to take you a year anyhow. While you're building that, you've got $10 a month, $10 a month, $10 a month coming in, and value being delivered back out, right? So that's the methodology that I want to put into place. And there's some factors that go into that, right? And so the first one we kind of say is business value, and we'll look at which ones I picked out of this for us. But obviously revenue, I mean, it is a business, and does this make money? Does this contribute, right? In our case, cost savings is one that a lot of times, you know, everything doesn't make money, but it's not what you make, it's what you keep. And so sometimes cost savings is a very equal driver there. In our case, not so much, but a very important one to us, contribution to customer experience, loyalty, or churn. So maybe it doesn't make us money, but the people are screaming for this, right? And so that needs to be an equal and first-class citizen up there. Things that you might consider is, does this make my product more stable or scalable? Does this contribute to security? In a lot of organizations that are going through digital transformations, that becomes a very important driver and a goal of a business. So those are the things that equal business value. And that's one of the main dimensions that you look at. And then the schedule and flexibility one, there's sometimes the ship will sail, an opportunity will be lost, right? And if you dilly-dally, and even by then though, when you've done it, the world has moved on, right? And so that really factors in and gives us this thing we call cost of delay. Things that are high value and have tighter schedules have a higher cost of delay. On the bottom side, effort is a very important dimension. And effort isn't just how much work is it, right? But how complex is it? If it's very complex, then there's a lot of testing involved, and maybe interactions with others. And so just things that are more complicated take longer. And so that factors in to our overall effort. And then lastly, solution uncertainty. Do we actually understand and know what it is that's being asked for? Do we know how to do this? And that factors in. It might be a small job, but I have no idea how to do it. So then for me, it's not, you know, going to be a small job because I'm not an expert at this, or I don't really understand the requirements. And so if you've got clear requirements and it's not very complex, and it's not a lot of work to do, then your effort's going to be less, and it'll be inverse as those things go up. So each one of these are levers that kind of get pulled and summed together to equal, really, I mean, as much as it seems like there's a lot of data here, it's just a few things that are at play, right? The value, the effort, and the risk. And risk is a couple of things. Your ability to staff for it. Do I actually have the people and the resources available? Do we have the knowledge in-house to do this, or do I need to bring someone on and staff up for this, whether it's a contractor or a third party, right? So again, these are things that factor in to making the decisions of, do we do this and when do we do it? And the schedule and flexibility, while it is a risk dimension, it comes into play up here, as I mentioned, in the cost of delay, because it's that time factor, but it's not value in and of itself. And so all you do really is kind of some simple math. You add up your business dimensions and you add that to your schedule and flexibility, you get your cost of delay. You take your effort levers and add them up. That makes the effort bigger as these other things are factored in. And then you take you account for your risks. And so when you add those up, you basically just get the cost of delay over the duration or the job size. How long is it going to take to do this? And that will give you a score that you can sort on and help you sequence and kind of pick. Now, we're humans, and a lot of times, not, you know, the AI hasn't gotten to the point of replacing us yet. So there's always little subtle factors and different things. And so this is not meant to be the be all end all, you must do them in this order, but it helps sort the deck for you. And especially as things are coming in over time, 5 or 10 requests turn into 50, turn into 100, it becomes almost impossible to manage this and look and compare things to each other. So that's the real purpose here. And that's what we want to put into place today. And I'm going to show you our friend. I have the development environment of the community portal. This is basically what we have out in the world today. And it's, you know, current, and took a snapshot of this probably a week or so ago. So this is very recent information. And I had a couple of paths I could take here. First one was, okay, well, I know my data points and things. I've got them defined here. So I have a pretty good idea of what I need to build. But as I thought about it, there's a lot of things that surround this. I need people to have the ability to request, you know, submit an idea. I need to have them have the ability to vote. We need to be able to discuss it back and forth. And the more I looked at it, I said, wow, this is pretty much like the questions that people are asking, only they're ideas that people are giving, they're suggestions. You can even think of it as a type of question. Can you build this for me, right? And so I said, rather than go and recreate the wheel and redo all this great stuff that's already here, this was a great opportunity for a little bit of surgery. And you know, we've talked in past low-code cafes, and I want to show you a little bit what I did is I said, hey, wow, the structure of so much of what I need is here. What I really need is a way to organize or categorize these questions that are coming in and give them a type. And so if we jump over here to our entity model, this is pretty much what goes into the whole forum. And the central kind of entity and key parent item that drives things is this questions entity. And before I jump in there and take a look, I realized I would just need a question type, right? And that was what I was going to introduce into here. I'll show off a feature from 112. A lot of times you're wondering, you know, you can edit these and look at what data structure and definition is in there, but you don't actually see the data itself. And a lot of times if these aren't shown in the menu or hidden or tucked away and not easily accessible, or heck, I'm not in the front end of the application, I'm here right now. So you have this little shortcut that'll just pop out a tab. And all I did was create a very simple entity. I gave a name for these types. So the first one I put in, that's what everything already was, is a question, general questions asked by the community. And then I've got ideas. That's the new one that we're working on today, community ideas and feature requests. And then I went ahead and seeded for something else I want to put in while I'm doing this surgery. Didn't have to do this now, and I haven't built around this yet, but I've got the plumbing for it, which are, I want the ability for the community to report to us security issues and concerns, things you're finding. This will lead to a bug bounty program that we want to open up and you know, kind of start crowdsourcing from another angle, helping make sure we have a really rock solid and secure platform. And so the idea here is, and then I just need to connect up these question types to my existing question entity. We'll take a quick peek. And so you can see I've got, you know, these are the basic fields, the title, the body, who requested it. There was already a status for these, that sort of thing, the tags, what feature it belongs to. And all I did was I added my type and I linked it up to my question types. Said that they were searchable and things like that, sortable, and save, override. I've now got that in. However, nothing is that straightforward. And one of the reasons I didn't want to have this all the way baked and just show you a cool prioritization system is because I think this is a very real world situation you're going to hit. We talk a lot of times about philosophy in Plant an App and how the entity builder is meant to get you 80% of the way there. It's a no-code solution, right? I can come in 5-10 minutes and I could make this question entity and this type and a couple of things that go with this and have the basics of, if I just want to enter in things, questions and answer them and update the status with a drop down, I mean, I'm golden in 5-10 minutes. But something that's as beautiful and interactive and complex as this community portal is not the out of the box, right? The out of the box got us to the point where we could turn that into this. And so there's some overrides and changes that were done to make things look like this and have some extra bells and whistles and functionality and totals of things and just the pretty colors and all of that. So, and that's what I mean by surgery, right? I didn't just go and add that field and say save and the world is done. I need to account for things. I had to go and say, okay, first step before I do anything is I need to go ahead and run a update query to go and say everything that's currently in here right now, I know ideas didn't exist before, so I need to set them to be questions. So I ran that query, I check, hey, everything that's ever been in there is now properly categorized, right? Then I said, okay, I need to introduce and give the ability to now create ideas. And so let's take a quick look at edit this, and this skin page, what have you, predates the page builder. And so it's kind of a shout out to the page builder. And so this is kind of the old school way of getting at things that you might be familiar with. But I'm gonna look, and I've got this listing here, and you'll see that it's got a pretty advanced SQL background into it. And all I had to do, I just came in and I injected into these queries my additional field, right? The other thing is that, so this is the listing module. It's just presenting itself, not in a tabular format, right? These buttons and things up here are able to filter it, are able to raise forms. Another thing that's in play up here is a search form, where I can do filtering and things like that, and that will filter down these results. And so I went in and I updated the SQL behind the scenes, and I tweaked the display output, and suddenly now ideas show up with the little light bulb, and questions show up with the questions. So I'm valid, I know that I've got this here, and I'm good. So then we run real quick, and let's take a look at the ask a question form that was here. So I tuned the grid. You'll notice I added an extra button, and the form at the time, because it was just an ask question, right? And that's all it was born to do. And so I had a choice. Do I make a whole new form that's very, very, very similar, almost identical to asking a question? Or do I put a little bit of logic into the form? And so what I did was I pass in a query string parameter when I push these buttons. And this form has a little bit of basic awareness of that. And I just added my type field here, and it's a drop down with autocomplete. And it just looks up the values from these question types and puts the default in, and it will initiate or default itself out to ones. Those are questions. So it still kind of assumes if I didn't get a value passed in, if something went wrong, this is probably a question. Otherwise, you push the button to create an idea, give an idea, and it will automatically pick that. Now, normal users won't be able to pick this option. This is only if you're in as like you have the role of Plant an App, right? And so that's us. And just a quick thing that had to be done when the form is submitted, and it runs basically some actions and things. All I did was I went to the create new question. These are built-in actions, and I saw that, hey, type is here now, right? So I just took my type field and added it, so that's gonna happen. And then let's kind of pause here. So now I have questions or ideas going in, and Other than that, like I have categories. Nothing's really different here. Let's jump back to our model here in the configuration. And so far, all I've done is give the ability to now start making different use of what was this questions entity. I did not want to store all of this additional data that goes along with ideas into the main questions though. So what I did was I created an idea score entity and a status. 2 entities is all that's here. Status, we can just pop and look at real quick. We don't need to get into the details, but I want to have some workflows and things and have it be visual. And I want not just for you all to submit ideas and us to then decide what we're doing or not. I want this to be transparent and visible, and you can, beyond getting notified, people can see the ideas. They can see where it's at in the process, from starting from the idea was just submitted. We're evaluating and scoring it. We've accepted it if it has enough bang for the buck, and just it means we agree this is a good idea. We want to do this, right? But that doesn't answer the question of when. And so this would be the stage where it will get injected into our backlog, our Microsoft Azure boards backlog that we work out of through an API connection, and it will go through the prioritization and things there. And you'll see it start showing up here on this roadmap we look at together week over week once it's been accepted. Oops. Sorry. Okay. So once it's been planned, it's in development, you'll be able to track it through beta, it's been shipped, or earlier on, for various reasons that we talked about our dimensions, it didn't make the cut. It was either too big, not enough value, not enough ROI, right? And so it's in the parking lot. It was evaluated. It's not selected for near-term implementation, may never be implemented, but it doesn't mean it never will. If it keeps getting votes and traction and conversation from the community, that definitely will influence things. And so it's still there. People can still see it. Maybe someone comes and has the same idea later. We don't want to go through the whole steps again. It'll direct and point you to, like, are you talking about this here? Ah, yeah, well, let me give a vote to it rather than recreate it. So what the entity looks like then, the big thing we'll be working with today is this idea score. And really, even though it has a lot of data elements, it's not very complex, right? It has a name, it's linked up to a question, right? And it has a status of its own. That's what we just looked at, from it was just submitted to it was delivered or it's in the parking lot. And then I just have my different levers or dimensions. And you'll see that almost all of them are just integer values. We're scoring on a scale of 1 to 5. And so you have the things that are tied to value, prefixed with a V. You have the things that are related to effort, prefixed with an E. There's totals for each of these, so we have somewhere to store up our scores once they're put into place. We have our risks, and then finally we'll have some final calculations. That is our cost of delay and our duration that we'll use to get our final score, which will be a decimal because we're doing division, right? So almost all numbers, right? I pick up a lot of freebie by hooking up to the question or of type idea. So I know a lot of information. That's where the idea itself was captured. This is just some related information so that I can quantify, classify, do math, make decisions on it without having to put all this weight onto the question. Right? And now I would have had to go and mess with all those forms and retest everything. I just injected one field there to say these are ideas. So jumping back to our form, kill this. So I added type when we create the new question, the data is injected, and then I call this, I just added a create new idea score. So remember, the system creates all these actions that you need for your CRUD, your create, read, update, delete. And this is no different, but I only want to run this, not when a question is submitted, when an idea is submitted. So I know what my type is, and I basically say, hey, if type, and if you ever see this equals in here, what does that mean? That's so I can default. If for some reason that dropdown did not have a value, I just wanted to set it to a 1, which is that it's a question. So that I can compare it to, is it a 2? And the 2 is an idea. If it's a 2, then this is going to run. And what this does is it creates a related record inside of the idea score table. And I just take the name of the idea and I make that the name for my idea score. I take in the ID of the question that was just created or submitted into that question table or entity. And then I give the status of it as 1, which is basically just, hey, idea submitted. And I 0 everything else out, right? Now I'm done. Now I have the ability to submit an idea and have a scoring set up for myself. And so this kind of gets us to what we're going to look at and work with today. So I don't need this form anymore. So I have a page here, and this was so far 90% generated, 95% generated out of the box by the entity builder. I put a little dashboard up so we can get some counts. I'm going to make these clickable so they'll filter the grid later, so that I can say, hey, let me just see my new ideas. Let me see things that we've accepted in, you know, and these basically are tied to that status. Now I am showing, for the purposes of while I develop, all these different fields and values just so I can make sure things are working. When I'm done, I'll go hide most of these columns and I'll just keep the totals, right? Because like I said, when we're looking here, the math actually is quite simple. It's just value plus inflexibility equals cost of delay, effort plus risk equals duration, right? So I'll probably have a handful of values that are on the grid, because maybe I see the total score and I want to understand, why did this one score higher than that one? Or how could this one have come up lower than that one? And I might see, we don't know how to build this, right? So the big part I want to get into, and I think this is something that many people face, and I get asked a lot of questions about this, is when the system and the entity builder generates forms and the grids and stuff for me, and I want to go, you know, when it's just the simple stuff like we were looking at where I had those basic statuses I'm maintaining and things like that, I just use the out of the box. I'm barely doing anything custom there. And if it is, it's so minor, it's not going to get in the way. When you drift really far from the script of what the system does for you, what the system knows about what it's created for you, because that's the underlying principle of what the system does. If I were to go and add another, I forgot one other lever that we want to have here, right? So let me go add it in so I can put it into my scoring model. The system is going to go, okay, I will not only add this to the database, but I'm going to come add it to this listing. I'm going to add it to the forms, and I'm going to make your updates and everything work. Well, when it looks and goes to touch things and it says, hey, something that was here that I created has changed. It always checks, is this what I expected it to be based on what I as the system did? If it's different, leave it alone. I'm not going to override it because you had a reason for overriding that as the developer, right? And so I knew that I'm drifting really far, but I like that the system is able to create and help me along as I change things. And so my point in all of this is I didn't want just a basic form that comes with things and just typing numbers, because that's something we haven't really talked about. What is a 1? What is a 2? What is a 3, right? And so kind of came up with a way here, and let's take a look. I have cloned the form that ships with the system, okay? And what I've switched over to is a control type. And I'm not sure if you all, there's so many gems and things hidden inside of Plantain app. And I don't know if you're in day-to-day, if you've come across this one or wondered when would I use this, but this is exactly the kind of time where you take users out of typing information into forms and you give them a more interactive, touch, tablet type friendly way to work with things. And so this slider, as I slide it, so the revenue here, and I can put any words I want, and we'll show how I've set this up. It's a 1, it's minimal. 2 means, there's some revenue. 3, there's a meaningful amount. 4, it's significant. 5, it's massive. It's a huge opportunity to make some money, right? We're going to change the world with this. And so same thing to the customer experience, Now, all of these don't follow that same logic, right? Things like how much effort will it take are kind of reversed, right? Or uncertainty, right? And so those are, you kind of flip them, and less is better. Less effort is a good thing compared to more effort, or schedule and flexibility, staffing things. So you know, I took and I basically just cloned the form that the system generated for me. I left it here. So always on these out of the box, things are just called form, right? And I just cloned the form and I made a copy of it. And I also added it to the page. I left my original one here so that if I go change anything in Entity Builder, it's going to pick that up for free. And I can just go look at that form and do some export, import, copy, paste stuff because I'm an extremely lazy developer, right? And I feel like things are less error prone that way to typos and stuff like that. But I've got things, and you saw I've got the sliders, but I didn't have them all done. Let's take just one more look here. And I want to show you this effort. So I've got my totals and things, and what we want to do is we want these sliders to roll. And as they do, right, as I'm totaling things, you see my total here for the value dimensions is going up, right? And so I want these to tally for me on the fly. I think I add a little booby here. We'll get rid of this one. But I did not do this dependency one, right? I left this one out on purpose because I want to show you guys how did I go about doing this. And it's kind of, these are one of the, hopefully the tricks that you tune in for. So the first one that I had, all of these were down, and we'll take a look at like this dependency one that's here, right? Out of the box, this is how the system set it up for me, okay? It gave it its title and its ID, and it's just a number because I said it was an integer in the entity model, right? And this is a little token that gets set up when the form pops up so that if there's an initial value, it will inject it in. So if I'm editing, you know, versus creating new. But the field types that I have here are sliders, right? And if we look at this slider field, it has a lot more options than the number field does. And remember, I'm lazy and I'm prone to typos and errors, right? So I set one of these up really good. And let's just take a quick look at what some of the features that this thing has. Starting text, ending text, that was what was sandwiching on my ends. So I know minimum, maximum, you know, I have a cue as I'm sliding. What does this mean as I go this direction or that? Some help text. That's what was showing up down there in the bottom by default. We can probably just open this up so we can kind of tab back and forth and it makes more sense. So you'll see that, you know, this is the revenue, how much effort will it take, right? That's that help text. This is the min and the max, kind of letting me know which way I'm going with things, right? And you can put any words that you want there, and that's set up here. And I can also put some bounds around my slider, right? These things can have precisions down to decimals if you want, and they can go very big if you want. In my case, I'm going from 0 to 5, minimum value then being 0. And remember, I defaulted everything to 0, so I don't have any empty values in here ever, nor will the system now ever allow me to have empty values because that can make math have problems, right? 0 means something in the math world, empty doesn't. The highest I can go on this is 5. I want to move in steps or increments of 1 at a time, right? And then I've got some captions. And that's when you saw when I'm moving these, this word here, minimal, is tied to a 1. Some is tied to 2. Meaningful tied to 3, right? And so all I do is I add captions and I say, hey, you know, 0 value equals none, right? We got this equals 1, and you know this is for the schedule. How tight is the time in your schedule, right? And it goes all the way out to, hey, we'll figure it out, or we need help, whatever. And then you see how the colors are changing as I move it. Again, totally optional. I could just have the words, or I could just have the colors, but I wanted them both, right? Because I think there's so much that's going on in the scoring model, and I need this to be really visual and easy for a human brain to understand, right? Not them having to think or remember what things mean. The colors reflect back to me that you know, green is good, green is in the right direction, red is like not so good, you know, and yellow is kind of in the middle. And then I've got the right wording. Now again, in real world, and you know, these words might be something like, you know, generates less than $10,000 a year in revenue. You know, medium might be $50,000 a year in annual revenue. You know, massive might be, hey, it's $1 million opportunity. It's up to you to decide what you want these to mean. But at its base, it doesn't matter between us. So if other really large company is implementing this same model and they watch this, what does a 5 mean to you? It can mean anything you want to you, right? As long as the math comes out, all this is helping you do is figure out bang for the buck. And a 5 of revenue to someone else could be a way bigger number in actual dollars than it is to me, but 5's still a 5 in our worlds relative to each other. And so that's how you set these up. And I wanted to show you then, so what do I do in this case? Well, I've got this dependency one, it's a number. I could go and use the drop down and say, hey, this is a multiple choice and it's a slider, and then hand fill all of that in, right? However, and that's totally allowable, especially in simpler cases where you're just changing maybe a large text field that's just static text and you want a WYSIWYG editor, right? Perfectly wonderful opportunity to just drop down and pick a different control type. And it's still fundamentally a text field, right? You just get to do more with it on the front end. In this case, though, I'm going to take one that I've already done. And so since this is dependencies, and it has to do with one of our risk kind of metrics here, right? So I'll take this one right here, the staffing one. And what I do, since this one's already set up, I'm going to hit this duplicate button and I'm going to clone it. So it's warning me now, hey, this is a duplicate, right? So you want to be a little careful and kind of go one by one and slow when you're doing this. But I know what I'm trying to put in is dependency, right? There's only a few things I need to pull down. So I'm going to pull my unique identifier down. Now this new one is a duplicate of this one up here, right? Before I move too much further, I know when I'm done, I don't want this one anymore. So I'm going to mark it for deletion as I work, just to make sure I don't accidentally leave it hanging around. And I'm going to grab my initialization token. And so now things are set up for me, right? And let's think about this. What this one really means is, so first thing, help text. Do we depend on others outside the development team for this? That's really what it's asking. Do I need help? Do I need help within the organization or the company to get this done? Do I need to bring in a specialist, a contractor, a third party, a vendor, right? Maybe someone says, hey, I love this. I know we've been kind of talking about in the forum about a Kanban board type interface, right? And so we could try to build that ourselves from scratch, right? But that's not our sweet spot and our specialty. And there are some vendors and third-party open source libraries out there, much like we implemented for that new calendar look, right? But if I go and use one of these third-party dependent, things, I'm introducing a dependency into the product, right? And so, I can say none, it's all us, or it's all internal, maybe. So that's still, not so bad. We can say yes, but internal. Need outside, maybe the 3 is a leveraging, maybe we just say third party tool. Need contractor or staffing. And we might just say, hey, we're farming it out altogether, which means you're completely at the mercy of someone else, right? So the higher this is, the more risky it is, right? If I have, no, we got this, right? This is all us, it's development team, it's our own code, it's our skills. I have everything I need self-contained to do this. That's way less risky than I'm engaging wholly a third party to do this for me. Do they care about my timeline like I do? Do they know my product like I do? No. So that's risk, right? And the labels, kind of need to be backwards here. So if you think about it, less dependency, I just said, is less risk. And I'm just using the bootstrap classes here. And so in reality, a 5 is danger. So I just reverse these. Still way faster, and I'm talking to this, way faster than me trying to rebuild these one by hand. So now I'm going to save. And I'll just quickly go to my layout, because whenever I clone or copy something, it shows up down at the bottom. And so this one, I prefixed it with the R, so it goes with the risks. And so I've got this scheduling risk, I've got the staffing, I've got the dependency risk in there now too. and then I have the risk total, right? So this should be where it goes. I think I left this guy Orphan down here, so he's part of effort. And I think I have a duplicate going on, and that's what I saw. So let's take a look. And that's why I do these one at a time, right? You might get tempted to do a bunch of them, but then if you messed up, it's harder to find, right? And to trace out, or you might be repeating the same mistake over and over and over again in the name of saving time. So always just take these one at a time, check what you're doing. And so now I can see I've got my revenue, my customer experience, my security. This is that size copy, and it's a text, it's a input number field. So it's definitely not what I want. I see I have a slider for size, so I'm good there. And it looks like I have everything I need. Let's just drop that size off real quick.
While you're doing that, I'll just jump in and say we're at the 5 till mark. So just from a timing perspective. And also we did get one question when you start talking about enhancing the community forum. We have how about adding a sponsor status to let the public support it? So that's a great suggestion as we figure out our actual, what we're going to do with the community forum.
Absolutely, meaning that the community may want to almost like a Kickstarter type thing, and may want to kick in and help fund a thing. Or
that's what I do.
Okay, yeah, I love it. That helps. And so, okay, so I've got these. Now we saw when I was working with this one, as I was moving the value ones around, right? And this is where I'll just kind of tidy things up, and maybe I'll finish this whole thing out. Maybe we'll take a look at it finished next week, or when it hits the community forum and it's live, we can take a look at how's it working under the hood. But really not much left to do now, right? It was thinking, usually I find that if designing and thinking of your data model and where you want to introduce things really is the most time consuming thing, but it's a measure twice, cut once type thing. So now I have everything I need to just drop this into place. As I move these sliders, we see my total is increasing, right? And so how did we do that? Well, let's go do it on our, so we've got our totals for value. Now let's do our totals for effort. And I'll show you another handy thing. You've got these buttons here, right? So I'm looking at effort itself. This little clipboard just copies the ID name, the name of the ID into your clipboard. And I'm going to go to the effort total, and I'm going to bind right here on value. This basically dynamically computes the value of the field, and that's exactly what I want here. So I just use my bracket syntax, and I say it's effort plus complexity and you might be wondering, hey, why don't you do this in a workflow? You're always going on about how workflows are the greatest thing since sliced bread. So I thought about that. There's a couple of reasons. One of them, and the main one, is I want the users to have real-time feedback as they're moving this. I want them to, because a lot of times this stuff isn't so straightforward, and you might want to influence the scoring a little bit, and you want to kind of see what's the calculations that are happening. Now, when it comes to the big formula, the one that actually gives me my final score, absolutely that's what's going to happen. After I slide these, when I submit this form, it's going to update and insert the values in. But then the last thing it will do is just call a workflow. And all that workflow needs is the ID of this idea. And it will basically, very simple, right? It's just going to do that division scoring, take these summed up values, do the math, and update my score, right? And maybe then update a status so things move forward in the process. But then what we should have then is the ability now to see these in the table, sortable by any of the things I want, right? And so let's just finish this one part up here. We can call it a day. So I'm going to say, going to refresh in place. And if I edit this guy, we can see now on my effort that as I move it, my effort total is going up, right? I think uncertainty goes down in risk, so I just got to move this. This is not part of effort. There's only 3 each. But you can see the math is happening. So what happens as a user, I'm going to make these totals be a little prettier, not editable, obviously, right? Because they're calculated. for all the stuff we talked about today, all a person really has to do is say, hey, is there a decent amount of money? Are the customers going to be happy? I've got the, I'm pulling in the votes from the idea. So that's, that's going to factor in whether it contributes to the scoring automatically or just me going, wow, 30 people have voted this up, or given it, maybe we do a star rating type system. And this is very highly sought after, voted, discussed. I can also look at how active is the conversation going. So I have available to me, because I've linked this to the idea, I have available all the data that goes along with that idea to use right here in a separate but related entity, right? And so all I have to do really is slide 9 sliders and all my scoring happens for me. So I just one by one go through these and say, yep, this is what I think. Hey, we're totally farming this out. And this total here that's for the risk. These will not be calculated by the form, right? The delay cost and the duration actually would happen in real time, but the final score, I want to go ahead and I want to put that responsibility with my workflow, because maybe I changed my scoring model. Last thing I'll show you here is when we were looking, I have these formulas here so I can weight things. All of these dimensions aren't created equally, and maybe as an organization or a company, you value your customer experience and loyalty more than you do revenue, or security trumps everything, right? More important than making money is making sure that you have a secure product and you don't get breached, right? So you might want to put into your scoring model a little amplifier that says, hey, kind of maybe add about 30% to the weighting of security, so that as that security score goes up, the overall business value of this thing goes up. That's why I want to keep that part of it in a workflow. But the simple math of just sliding these and adding them up is perfectly fine to do in the form. And it makes more sense to do in the form. So the user has feedback in real time and they can kind of see that all the math looks good. So I update this. You can see all my numbers kind of came in. Now, next step, last step, is to call the workflow that calculates the final score. And now I have these scored. I will hide these more granular ones. And I might want to, most of the time, just sort by score, right? The higher the score, the better, right? And saying these are the things, these are the fruit to pick first. You're going to deliver value quicker if you take these things in sooner, right? And kind of get to them. We will push these from this system into our actual backlog and where the team works out of through integration, API integration. But maybe sometimes the scores, as the ideas build up, there might be 30 things that are very similarly scored. I might say, hey, you know what? I want to do something for the community, right? Let me sort by the customer experience side of things, right? Let me see which one of these have high scores amongst those. I can also, and I've set these to be filterable, right? And I can say, I only want to look at things that maybe tick the security box or have, a certain high level of customer satisfaction, And so what you have then with mostly out of the box stuff, a special form, one workflow is a complete scoring and prioritization model that is quite advanced. I mean, this is stuff that even really big enterprises are trying to do and struggling to do, because there's just nothing out there that does you, right? There is no system out there that has these dimensions in it, that understands my community forum, right? Even if I was using a third-party forum through an API integration, I can still, with Plantanet, build my whole scoring and prioritization model. And it just so happens both are living in the same house here right now, but you can see the value and where you can, as I say, kind of do some surgery on something existing you have and adapt it. And there's a little bit of work, so things they start out very quick. There's a little more as you go, and you want to be mindful, but a whole lot of power, still a whole lot faster than trying to start from scratch or find a new tool and learn how to use it and find that it doesn't meet your specific needs, your formula. Sorry for going over a little bit, but
very nice.
Wonderful, Reza. Can't wait to see this in production on our community forums. I think it will help create a lot of predictability for our community and also a nice roadmap for ourselves. So thanks everyone for being here again this week in our webinar. If you have any feedback, feel free to give it to us in the feedback form that comes after this webinar, or just shoot us an email to any of us. And we'll be seeing each other next week. Bye, everyone.